My journey in Mount & Blade 2 started like so many others, by repeatedly mashing random in the character select screen until something interesting happened. And ho boy did it! And thus Sir Bozo the Brave was born. Now, I went in expecting this to be a serious medieval sandbox, but as you'll very quickly see, Sir Bozo was not an anomaly, he was just a herald of the chaos that is to come. But I'm not gonna lie, those first few fights were truly embarrassing. You would think fighting from horseback would be easy, but as it turns out, the only thing that's easy is completely whiffing your attacks and dealing a grand total of 1 damage. But battle after battle, Sir Bozo was getting better. And so, emboldened by his success against the unwashed masses, I decided to sign up for a tournament. But not just any tournament. If I'd managed to get to the end of it, I would be the proud owner of Humphrey the camel. I had to have it. So I summoned all of my courage and I dove in. The first round was rough, but my team managed to pull through thanks to Sir Bozo expertly blocking shots with his face. Round 2, I was not so lucky. My run ended with a guy called Heckard stabbing me straight into the guts. And with it, my dreams of owning Humphrey spilled away alongside my breakfast. It was sadly just not meant to be. Disheartened by this loss, I decided to do what any rational person would: drown my sorrows in a large pile of money. And let me ask you a question. What's the best trading technique of all time? Of course, it is extortion. All I had to do was go to a city that was recently pillaged and then sell basic supplies at absurdly inflated prices. And not only did this rake in a mountain of gold, but Sir Bozo was hailed as a hero. Which is quite ironic, as this is where the villain of our story appears: Berican. He muscled into my business, ruined my profits with his endless caravans, and pretty much single-handedly ended the very humble career of Sir Bozo the Trader. Left with no other choices, Sir Bozo became a sellsword for the kingdom. This was seen as such a monstrous power grab by Valandia that the Western Empire immediately declared war. And so, for the very first time in his entire life, Sir Bozo actually had some friends and the concrete goal. What followed next had me giddy with excitement. An actual siege battle. Hundreds upon hundreds of men on each side. Siege engines roaring throughout the day, and the smell of anticipation heavy in the air. I ran to the castle gates as soon as I could. And it was at this point that I realized historic sieges must have been an absolute nightmare. Because when the ram broke through the gate and our men flooded in, they didn't get to be heroes. They just died instantly, crushed on one side by enemy spears and on the other by their own men pushing them forward. And as I sat there watching dozens upon dozens of men get mulched just to gain a few centimeters of ground, I realized the true futility of war. But then I remembered I'm playing a video game, so I ran in there like a lunatic, only to then immediately die without even realizing what killed me. Thankfully, you don't actually die in Bannerlord, you just get knocked down. So basically, I just laid there on the floor like a carpet while my comrades did all of the work. And then something truly insane happened. I met the king for the very first time, and he was apparently so enraptured with my impression of a corpse that he gave me the status of a vassal, which also resulted in one of the funniest cutscenes in the game, as my 3.5 meter clown was taller kneeling than the king was on his booster seat throne. And since with great power comes great influence, I used my newfound abilities to push through a brand new law. One that encourages vassals to operate heavy ships and punishes those that do not. And do you remember Berican? The douche nozzle that ruined my trading empire? Well, you wanna guess what kind of ships he didn't have? Oh, sweet, sweet revenge. What followed next was another massive siege, but this time around Sir Bozo wasn't just a floor ornament, he was actually the hero. You see, if you go on a guerrilla mission and sneak behind enemy lines, you can just cleave through entire regiments without anyone noticing. Well, until there's a glaive in their spleen anyway. And so, Sir Bozo ended that conquest with over 100 kills, though unfortunately even that wasn't enough to earn him a city of his own. Instead, what he got was even more fighting, as on the way back home we were ambushed by a sizable army of archers and cavalry. While this might have been a problem for Sir Bozo of yesteryear, at this point he had seen so much combat he was basically a 4-meter tall bulldozer. And so, with a couple of well-placed charges, the Empire army was scattered. And with it, their morale, because shortly afterwards they came begging for peace, which we graciously accepted in return for 1,000 gold per day. There was no time to rest and enjoy the spoils, however, as Berican, cursed be his name, immediately launched us into another war against the Aserai down in the south. While I'm sure he had nothing but vile intentions, this campaign turned out to be a blessing in disguise. In order to secure himself a higher position on the royal food chain, Sir Bozo proposed to deepen his ties to the Aromanc family through marriage. And as luck would have it, Sylvant was available. And since this whole campaign decided to be a comedy, she turned out to have the vacant 1,000-yard stare of someone that religiously played catch the brick during childhood. Needless to say, she was perfect. And right after our marriage, another miracle. A message appeared telling me that the Council of Nobles decided to give me a honeymoon gift, a brand new castle. And the whole thing was spearheaded by the lovely Berican. Maybe I just misjudged the man. Maybe he wasn't an intellectual sphincter like I first thought. But then it started to dawn on me. I was given a castle that produces no income, yet requires an expensive garrison. And more importantly, I was given a castle on the front lines protecting Berican City. At this point, I was boiling with rage. But I have to give credit where credit is due. He may be the devil in human skin, but that was a damn good way to screw me over. As soon as our armies hit the Aserai shores, things went bad. They were waiting for us, and there was a lot of them. And so, on that stormy, glitchy evening, Sir Bozo fought not for glory, but for his very survival. And let me tell you, that battle will go down in legend as Sir Bozo carved a bloody path through the enemy horsemen, almost single-handedly stopping the entire Aserai cavalry and giving his team an actual chance at victory. The fight lasted so long that dusk turned to dawn, yet the Aserai never stopped coming. No matter how many men he trampled, it simply wasn't enough. And so, after 30 real-life minutes of non-stop charging, Sir Bozo was finally forced to admit defeat and surrender. The campaign against the Aserai failed before it even truly began. But nobody ever accused Sir Bozo of being smart, so as soon as he was ransomed back, he raised a new army, joined the king's forces, and made another attempt against the Aserai. This time with a far greater force in tow. We laid siege upon the fortified city of Quaz, and after a brief exchange of crossbow fire, we busted open the door and forced the defenders to surrender. The king was once again so impressed with my performance that he granted me my very first city. Berican naturally opposed, but since he does smell faintly of shit, nobody really wanted to be near him, and so the proposal passed. The Chuckles dynasty was thus forever bound to Quaz, the jewel of the south. There was just one teensy-weensy problem. Every single person in my entourage was chosen because they're bloodthirsty lunatics and not because of their statecraft. So nobody could actually run the city. Well, not well anyway. But then I noticed something very peculiar. It would appear that my useless brother married way above his league. Apolitia was essentially a genius. She was an expert in statecraft, could charm an apple off a tree, was a shrewd engineer, and could beat your ass with literally any weapon at any time. She was perfect, and under her watchful eye, Kuaz quickly turned into one of the most prosperous cities in the entire kingdom. The war against the Aserai continued afterwards, but honestly, kind of half-heartedly. Neither side wanted another bloodbath, and so after a few weeks of awkward silence, a peace treaty was signed. This is where Sir Bozo had a bit of a midlife crisis and just started doing weird side quests. First, he joined a couple of tournaments and crushed them with ease as he was a 4.5 meter tall bundle of rage. But those hollow victories gave him little satisfaction. He then tried to do Mount & Blade 2's variant of Gwent, but very quickly stopped once he realized that it was actually the most boring game ever conceived by mankind. What he did get into, oddly enough, was smithing. He spent 3 months hammering away at misshapen daggers and blunt swords. Did he learn a lot from this experience? Absolutely. Did he create a single weapon that was actually usable? Absolutely not. As for Berican, would you be surprised that he continued to be insufferably stupid? I know this sounds like I'm just making stuff up for cheap drama, but just look at this. He was literally the only person in the entire kingdom that tried to stop us from trading with Sturgia, something that he himself would have profited greatly from. He is actually insane. And like any good movie, Sir Bozo got himself a sequel. And like with any good sequel, Hollywood rushed out a lazy spin-off to capitalize on its success, and so we began another war against the Western Empire. But this time around, Sir Bozo wasn't just a sellsword. Between him and his companions, he commanded a mighty army, and so the Empire's strongholds fell one after another, until we finally reached Zionica, a beautiful little city on the coastline. After a hard-fought battle in which I used my patented stay behind them and swing method to score myself hundreds of kills, the city's defenders surrendered and I was granted my second city. In order to celebrate, I didn't just buy some booze for the boys, I straight up bought the whole vineyard, because why not? Well, a good reason would be a gang of bandits that didn't really take kindly to me muscling in on their business. So what happened is they started raiding my trade caravans. This insult obviously could not stand, so I sniffed out their hideout and snuck in alone. At which point I realized they're basically Skyrim guards and therefore blind, deaf, and stupid. They did not last long. With that little diversion out of the way, and most of the countryside on fire from the enemy counterattack, I rallied a new army and realized something that has become a bit of a personal theme for me. Siege engines are useless. Just like in Total War Warhammer 3, there is just no point in building slow rams or siege towers when you can just run to the walls, put up some ladders, and be inside the city within a minute. Armed with this new knowledge, castle after castle fell before my forces, until we eventually reached my next prize, the city of Amitatis. Its defenders had already been exhausted, so capturing it was mostly a formality. Things started to really speed up at this point, as in the very next battle, Sir Bozo managed to chew through so many enemies in a single fight that the council overwhelmingly granted him control of the newly captured Jalmaris. Oddly enough, Berican didn't vote against me, though I don't think that had anything to do with a change of heart. It is far more likely that the boulder that hit him square in the face during the last siege gave him other priorities to worry about. Humbled by their losses, the Empire was forced into signing yet another lopsided peace treaty, and for the first time in 30 hours, there was actual calm in the kingdom. Everything went quiet, and my followers grew rich and fat off the backs of our sprawling trade empire. But Sir Bozo, who had only known true peace in the heat of battle, started to grow restless. And so, to end the campaign on one last hurrah, he assembled a mighty fleet of warships and set out to sea. His objective? To find literally anyone worthy of a good fight. It was after about 1 month of sailing around with no action at all that Sir Bozo realized he probably should have gone out on a huge siege battle. But he was stubborn as he was tall, so he persisted until finally, mercifully, a band of desperate deserters off the Aserai coast challenged him to a fight. They were numerous, but Sir Bozo was quicker. He struck at one half before they had a chance to regroup. The sea was once again rough and stormy, but unlike our first battle many moons ago, the crew was not nervous. The archers and engineers tore one of the enemy ships apart before we finished them off by ramming into them. Afterwards, we pushed aboard the biggest and the baddest ship in the fleet. I would love to tell you this was an epic fight, but aside from Sir Bozo accidentally killing his own crossbowman who then comically fell into the sea, the battle was over as quickly as it began. They stood no chance before my experienced mariners. The second group came at us during the night. This time around I had to fight in close quarters as the weather made accurate shots nearly impossible. Sir Bozo, being the 5-meter tall behemoth that he is, quickly lost his footing on the slippery nets and fell into the water in the middle of the brawl. But rather than this being a moment of embarrassment, it turned out to be an opportunity, for it allowed him to board the enemy ship and clear out their archers from behind. At which point he faced off against a crossbowman that was far better at sword fighting than most knights. The duel was intense, though unfortunately cut short by an expertly placed shot by one of my own men. And with their hero gone, the enemy surrendered and Clan Chuckles added 4 new ships to their menagerie. And so our story ends with Sir Bozo the Benevolent, a 6-meter tall brick house of a man ruling over a mighty trade empire. His enemies trample beneath the hooves of his endless legions of heavy cavalry, and the accursed Berican seemingly out for good as he hasn't piped up once since he kissed that boulder. Truly, it was a glorious era for mankind, and one that historians will tell tales about for centuries to come. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, a like and a sub would help me out a lot, and I do hope to see you again soon. Bye bye!